everyone, welcome to this live stream, Coach Your Team to Success, hosted by Grow with Google. Grow with Google helps people grow their skills, careers, and businesses by offering free digital skills training and tools. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Anna, and I'm an instructor here at Grow with Google. I'm so excited that you're here with us. Today, we're going to discuss the attributes of good managers and how you can best coach your team members to maximize their potential and performance. In this workshop, I'm working with my co-instructor, Basim. Later, I'll pass it off to him to answer some of your questions live at the end of today's workshop. If you have questions you'd like him to answer, be sure to use the Q&A section below the video player by clicking the blue button that says Ask a Question. We'll choose the top voted questions, so make sure to upvote your favorites. If we don't get to answer all of the posted questions, our team will reply directly in the Q&A shortly after the virtual event concludes. We also encourage you to use the chat feature for any comments that you may have and also to engage with the other attendees who are watching the workshop. This chat will be available to those who opted in and can be found directly to the right of the video player on your screen. If you would like to access the additional resources for this class, check out the resources section below the video player on the right-hand side. This includes a copy of today's presentation. You will also be able to access a replay of this virtual event in the future by clicking On Demand on the Grow with Google On Air homepage. Also, don't forget to post and share about your experience on social using the hashtag #GrowWithGoogle. Finally, you also have the option to turn on YouTube's closed captioning to follow along. To do so, click the closed captioning button directly on the video player on your screen. Now, let's get started. When you think about startups failing, you might immediately assume it was a cash flow issue. You could also guess that it was a product or marketing problem. One of the last things many of us might assume is that failure was related to the company's people. But in reality, 65% of startups fail because of people-related issues. Many startups think about their people and their HR processes after their product and marketing strategy, but in actuality, this could not be more important. This stuff really matters. Nothing is more important than the people that you bring on your team to accomplish your dream with you. You can have the most brilliant business idea, but without the right team, it will never work. Let's talk about why we're here today. Our learning objectives for this workshop are, first, we'll understand what makes a great manager based on the attributes and behaviors observed by Google's internal research. We'll see the 10 attributes that make the best managers. Then we'll learn how to be a good coach for your team and understand when to direct, when to mentor, and when to coach. Lastly, we'll help you understand how to provide meaningful and developmental feedback to your team. The idea here is really to maximize their potential, performance, and their own development. To be the best manager and coach for your team, you first need to understand those attributes and qualities that make great leaders. Many of you might feel uncomfortable with the idea of managing others or believe that a talented team will just do a good job naturally. But effective management plays a key role in a team's success, and even more important, is one of the strongest reasons for employees to stay with a company or inevitably decide to leave. So what does that mean for all of you? There are some really basic things, many of which I'm sure you're already doing, to ensure that you're a great manager. First, you want to create an inclusive environment. Are you modeling a respectful and inclusive environment? Are you encouraging everyone to show up as their true, authentic selves? And are you supporting your team in good times and in bad? Next, empower the team and don't micromanage. Are you involved in every nitty-gritty detail or path that your team takes? Or do they feel empowered to make decisions, take risks, and innovate on their own? Next, you want to support career development and discuss performance. Do you communicate performance expectations clearly? Are you aware of your team's goals and dreams? Do you help your team to find opportunities and continue to grow in their career and potential? Next, you want to make sure that you are a good coach. Are you providing specific feedback? Are you asking good questions to help your team find solutions and explore options? Are you having regular one-on-ones with each member of your team that include feedback and coaching? Next, think about being a good communicator. Do you encourage open dialogue on your team? Are you responsive and transparent within your team? Are you truthful and calm? And are you a good listener? Next, you want to have a clear vision and strategy for the team. This one is especially important for startups, as people who join you likely join for the vision of your company. So do you have a compelling vision and strategy that motivates and inspires your team? Do you involve your team in the creation of that vision, and are you able to clearly communicate it? Next, be productive and results oriented. Are you able to translate the vision and strategy into tangible goals, objectives, and key results? Are you clear about who owns what? Do you structure your team and allocate resources appropriately? Do you have a diverse team with different skills, perspectives, and experiences? Next, you want to make sure that you collaborate. Are you modeling collaboration across all parts of the team? Do you hold your team accountable for upholding your cultural and team values? Do you contribute to the culture and community of your team by working across functions and locations when applicable? Next, be a strong decision maker. Are you able to make tough decisions efficiently in a way that is good for your company? Do you clearly communicate that decision, for example, when you get full consensus versus when you make an executive decision as the founder? And lastly, have key technical skills to help advise the team. Are you able and willing to roll up your sleeves and actually do the work alongside your team? Do you understand the challenges and complexities of the work that your team is doing? Are you constantly learning and growing your skills to meet the needs of your business? So think about what resonates with you here. What do you think you'd like to focus on? Where are you already doing a really good job? And which areas feel like they might not apply to you? Today, we're going to focus on what it means to be a good coach, as this is one of those areas that can make a significant difference in the overall success of your team members. What does it mean to be a coach? Coaching is a mindset, a way of being, a way of relating, a way of connecting. Coaching is about unlocking someone's potential. This is huge for you as a founder or manager because eventually it will free up your time, empower your team, and essentially up-level your entire company. This is like the old adage, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Coaching is investing the time with someone to help them to learn how to fish. But when do we know that it's the appropriate time to coach? As a people manager and a leader, one of the most difficult things is knowing when and how to coach. You're asked to do a lot. You have to teach, train, mentor, and coach. And you have to be able to adjust your approach based on the circumstances, the needs of your team, and the opportunity for growth. On this chart, you'll see teaching on the far end of the spectrum, where a manager shares their ideas and knowledge. But on the opposite end, in a coaching conversation, the individual being coached is mostly sharing their own ideas, which results in their development. Of course, as a people manager and leader, there are many times when you still have to be directive, to tell someone exactly what and how to do something. But the more time you can spend on the right side of this continuum, the more you'll be able to free up yourself, empower your team, and maximize the potential of every person that you work with. Coaching is all the way on the right side of the continuum because it's about the individual or the employee that you're working with. It's about encouraging their ideas, their development, rather than imparting your own experience and knowledge. This is a chance for you to step outside of yourself, take the pressure off, and simply focus on the person that you're coaching. Now that you understand why coaching is important, let's talk about how you can best coach your team to maximize their performance in their everyday tasks. How can you begin coaching today? The idea is not to have you all go out and become certified coaches. The idea is that you can become more coach-like in the approach with your team, your employees, and maybe even people in your personal life. The true foundation of being a good coach is good listening and good asking. These are very basic skills, which I'm sure you're all fairly good at already. But we'll delve into the different ways to show up, truly listen, and see your team, and to be curious so that you can ask good, open-ended questions. Great coaching actually starts with good listening. Many of you likely already know what it means to be an active listener, to tilt your body toward the person that you're talking to nod, make eye contact, etc. But did you know that there are different levels of listening that can indicate where your focus is when you're in a conversation? Level 1 listening is really internal listening. We've all done this, and we've all been on the receiving end of this kind of listening, where someone is talking to you and you're nodding and saying, oh yeah, of course. But in your head, you're reviewing your grocery list, you're wondering if you remember to feed your cat, and you're planning what you're gonna eat for dinner later. This is really passive attention, stuck in your own head and really disengaged from the person that you're with. Level 2 is factual and focused listening. For example, 2 colleagues might have a business meeting to work out a new sales process. They're listening closely to each other's ideas. They're engaged and participating, but the focus is on the facts, words, and objects. Level 3 is truly whole body listening and really focuses on bringing empathy into the conversation. You're engaged in what the other person is saying while also taking in the values and feelings involved in what it is that you're hearing. Most importantly, you're truly suspending your own agenda and judgment. When you're listening to your team members, levels 2 and 3 are where you want to be. Now, of course, you'll slip into level 1. It's just human nature to say or think, oh, that's happened to me, or maybe just to get lost in your own head or thoughts. But the more that you can bring your attention back to the human being in front of you, to listen to their stories without judgment or a need to paraphrase or connect it to you, the more fully they will feel seen and heard. This is hugely powerful in coaching. While good coaching starts with the right kind of listening, it's also about asking the right questions. Coaching has to do so much with asking good questions. The good news is that when you're coaching, you don't really need to know the answer. Congratulations, you just get to sit back and ask open-ended questions. Of course, we really want to avoid yes/no questions in coaching because these questions don't allow for greater discovery and learning for the coachee. A great tip for you when you're in a coaching conversation or trying to coach your employee is to ask yourself, am I asking this question for my own information gathering or for my coachee's discovery? If you're asking the question just to gather information on the topic at hand, don't ask that question. You truly don't need to know anything about the topic when you're coaching. Oftentimes, knowing more makes it more difficult for you to remain unbiased and to not give advice. The best types of questions to ask are what and how questions because they solicit more thoughtful exploration from your coachee. Who, when, and where questions can be useful, but usually are more informative and factual based. We want to steer clear from why questions because they can often get people into a defensive place. A great alternative is how come. A great acronym to help you stay focused while coaching is WAIT, W-A-I-T, or why am I talking? Of course, asking powerful questions is very important, but you as the coach should really only be talking 20% of the time, at the most. Ask simple, open-ended questions and then step back. Silence is absolutely okay. If there is silence, it usually means you've asked a thought-provoking question. You don't need to fill the silence, and you don't need to qualify your questions, elaborate, or provide input, even though I know you'll be tempted to. Just remember to ask yourself before you speak, why am I talking? Maybe you're wondering where to start when it comes to asking questions. Here are some great sample questions that you can use to get started coaching. The first one is, what's happening? This is all about establishing the current state. Coaching is present and future focused, so this is about bringing the coachee to the present moment to understand what's happening exactly right now. Next, what's most important? This is great to get an understanding of what's most important to the coachee, where they want to go, and to establish that ideal future state. And then next, how do you get there? This is about laying the groundwork and having the coachee understand how to take the steps to move forward towards their ideal future state. Once again, in this place, you don't need to advise or tell them what to do. It's all in their hands. Good coaching is based on the foundational belief that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, which might sound a little woo-woo, but what it really means is that every person you're working with and coaching has all the solutions and ideas inside them. When you're coaching, your job is to merely help them uncover those solutions. A great model we use to begin coaching is the GROW model. This will help you to work through the basic coaching framework when you're working with your team. The G in GROW stands for goal you want. The R, reality of today. O, options for action. And W, will take these steps. The GROW model, goal, reality, options, and will, can aid in the natural evolution of a coaching conversation. The key here is to not rush to the will or to the action. Coaching is all about discovery. You should spend 90% of your time in the goal, reality, and options space, really focused on the goal and reality. It's so rare for people to explore options aloud, to dream about their goal, to explore the reality. Coaching is the time for this. It's a human tendency to rush toward the solution, to immediately find the problem and fix it. But if you free yourself from this urge, you can truly help your team explore and grow on their own without a need to find the solution. Here are some sample questions for the GROW coaching model that you may find helpful. We have broken out the different categories of the GROW coaching model and applied questions that can guide you in getting started with each phase of the model. The first is goals. You might ask, what is your goal? What is most important for you? How can I help? What's on your mind? What are your innermost interests and needs? What does success look like for you? What is your ideal outcome? Next, when we're exploring the reality of the situation, we might ask questions like, what have you done so far? What's happening in this situation? How could you learn more? What do your colleagues say? How would you rank your priorities? If your perspective is welcome, consider feedback on skills and accomplishments, reputation, strengths, and weaknesses. Next, for options, you might ask questions like, what are steps forward? What experiments could you try? What else? What about stretch assignments, big project experiences? What about networking options and mentors? And finally, the will stage. What is the next right step? What do you want to do? What is a good deadline for that? What resources would help? How can I help? What advocacy would help? What is a small step forward? Sometimes people get caught up in what they need to do in the far future that sometimes they don't focus on the tiny next step. How do you want us to monitor? How can we track progress? Sometimes the best way to learn is simply to understand how concepts work in practice. Let's look at a common coaching example together. But before we do that, I want to remind you that we are about halfway through this workshop. If you're joining us live, remember that we'll be answering some of your questions live at the end of this workshop. Use the Q&A section below the video player by clicking the blue button that says Ask a Question. As a manager, you may have been faced with situations on your team where one member in particular who was once a high performer makes a total shift in their performance and their overall demeanor. In our mock scenario, Angela is the owner of a local coffee shop. One of Angela's store managers, Claire, is displaying behavior that seems out of the ordinary for her. Angela has addressed these concerns in a more formal performance review, and Claire responded that she will try harder. Because not much change has resulted from those conversations, Angela decides to sit down with Claire for a coaching session. Angela chooses a quiet, informal, private place to have this coaching conversation and greets Claire with a warm and welcoming smile. Coaching conversations should be designed to put the coachee at ease. The more comfortable they are, the more likely they are to open up about their challenges and goals. Let's look at some of the questions Angela may decide to ask Claire during the coaching session. Using the GROW model, Angela may start with asking Claire to discuss her goals and desires for her role. Through a series of questioning and active listening, Angela may learn that Claire actually just graduated from a part-time graduate school where she was studying marketing. She has a deep passion for design and would like to utilize those skills, but her demanding management role at the coffee shop doesn't allow for much extra time for creativity. As Angela moves into some reality questions, she also learns that Claire is caring for an ill family member at home, and the hours that she keeps at the coffee shop make it difficult for her to juggle her personal duties. Sometimes she is late for work because she has to arrange for extra help at home, or she has to take her family member to doctor's visits. The stress of her home situation often carries over to her work and affects her mood with the baristas and customers. From this example, Angela has learned that some assumptions she made about Claire's performance was actually really wrong. The concerns have everything to do with Claire's motivation for the type of work she was doing and a challenging personal situation. As Angela moves through the questions related to options and steps forward, she learns that Claire has some great ideas for marketing the coffee shop. Angela knows that her marketing is lacking and that she really needs some extra support in that area. Together, Angela and Claire come up with a plan for Claire to do some marketing work for the coffee shop at home during the day so she can care for her ill family member. Angela also gives Claire the option to work more evening hours to give her more flexibility to be home for doctor's appointments. Angela and Claire commit to meeting every other week for more coaching to discuss her progress with the new responsibilities and any changing needs in her home life. Had this coaching conversation never taken place, Claire may have sought out a marketing position elsewhere, and Angela may have made assumptions about Claire's work ethic or focus when she was merely stretched too thin due to caring for her family member in need. Coaching can help us to creatively problem solve and to be a bit more human as well. Now let's talk about when it's time to give feedback. This often goes hand in hand with coaching conversations. Hopefully we've all been given feedback. Hopefully we've all also given feedback. We know it's a positive thing intended to help us grow and develop. Yet when someone says the words, "I have some feedback for you," it can often be a fear-inducing phrase. My goal today is to help you to begin to see what a gift feedback is and begin to give that gift to each member of your team on a regular, consistent basis. When you're giving feedback, think about how you're presenting it. Avoid listing only areas that need improvement. It's important always to also acknowledge what someone is doing well. You also want to avoid sandwiching feedback, saying one good thing, one bad thing, and then another good thing. People will see right through that. You want to give a ratio of constructive and positive feedback that is 5-1. That means you should be acknowledging your team's performance, and when you see good things, say so. And of course, when there's an opportunity to provide constructive feedback, always do so. We're going to review a framework for delivering feedback and help you to understand the best time and place to deliver this feedback to your team for maximum impact. Let's talk about feedback and how best to deliver it. Have you ever heard the old adage, "It's not what you say, it's how you say it"? Well, approach is everything when it comes to feedback. If you deliver feedback in an ineffective way, it could have a negative impact on the morale of your team, their development, their trust in you, and their commitment to your company. This is where approach really matters. You need to find a style that works for you, but here's a framework we recommend to ensure your feedback is grounded, action-oriented, and truly aimed to develop your team, not criticize them. Your feedback should always start with the situation. Exactly when did you see this happening? You want to avoid generalizations and be as specific as possible. Move to the behavior you observed. What did they do or say? Lastly, and most importantly, is the impact. What's the impact of the behavior? Or in other words, what's the purpose of providing this feedback? Once you move through this framework, you can work with your team members to clarify any questions, create options, and agree on next steps. Here are some examples of what the SBI framework looks like in action, using the example of Angela's coffee shop from our case study. I encourage you to think about the kind of situation you may face as a manager in your business, startup, or workplace. For the situation, when the store got busy during rush hour. The behavior, You went above and beyond to accommodate a customer with special needs. And the impact, the customer later contacted management to show appreciation for how supported they felt. That's great positive feedback. Now let's look at another scenario. Same situation. The store was busy during rush hour. The behavior being addressed, you didn't perform or delegate any important cleaning protocol, like mopping up a spilled coffee on the floor. And the impact, it puts our customers and staff at risk. This is meant to be developmental or constructive feedback. In summary, get in the mindset for giving feedback. It's always positive because it shows that you care about the person's success. Try using the steps that we talked about. Preparation is key. Make sure that you be yourself. Go in being really authentic and honest. You want to also adapt the conversation to your style and to your direct report style. You'll want to share more positive or motivational feedback than developmental. Remember, the ratio is 5-to-1. This model can help you to coach your team to success, but the most important thing is that you're giving consistent, timely, and actionable feedback to your team on a consistent basis. This should not be something you're doing only during performance reviews or each quarter. This should be on a consistent, ongoing basis. It's all in the service to your team and therefore it's service to the company. Now it's time to recap what we learned today. Today we learned about 10 attributes that make up a good people manager. Create an inclusive environment, empower the team and don't micromanage, support career development and discuss performance, be a good coach, be a good communicator, have a clear vision and strategy for your team, be productive and results oriented, collaborate, be a strong decision maker, and have the key technical skills to advise the team. We focused on what it means to be a good coach, and we addressed how to coach using the GROW model: goal, reality, options, and will. And we discussed how to best give feedback using the situation, behavior, impact formula. Now let's review some of the free resources from Google. If you enjoy video lessons, subscribe to the Grow with Google YouTube channel at youtube.com/growwithgoogle. The channel publishes a new video every Thursday covering topics that can help you grow your skills, careers, and businesses. To make it easier for businesses to help their employees get the skills they need, U.S. businesses can get up to 500 scholarships each to Google Career Certificates to train their employees. These scholarships are worth up to $100,000 in workforce training per US-based company. Businesses can use Google's career certificates to train their employees for jobs in data analytics, digital marketing and e-commerce, IT support, project management, or user experience design. No experience is required, and employees can earn an industry-recognized credential in 3 to 6 months of part-time study. For every scholarship we give, a business will be gaining capabilities, and at the same time, an employee will be growing new skills. Here's the fine print. U.S. businesses are eligible to receive up to 500 scholarships for Google Career Certificates on Coursera, valid through December 18th, 2024. Eligibility and number of licenses granted subject to application, business verification, and approval by Coursera. Businesses can apply at grow.google/certificates for business. Grow with Google is an initiative to help people prepare for work, find jobs, and grow their business. Job seekers can grow their skills in order to find new jobs and advance their careers. Teachers can learn how to put the latest technology to work inside and outside of the classroom. Small business owners can build their online presence and find new customers. Startups can learn to get their ideas the exposure they need to succeed. Developers can sharpen their current skills and master new ones. To learn more, visit google.com/grow. This wraps up the presentation portion of today's workshop. Now give us just a few moments to pass it off to Basim, who will answer some of the questions you submitted.
Hey everyone, I'm Basim, and I'm here to answer a few of the questions you asked throughout today's session. And as usual, we've received quite a few of them. Remember, if we don't get your question, we'll go back and answer all of them on the Growth Google on air page below the virtual event shortly after it concludes. All right, so let's get to our first question. The first question here is from Aurelia, and she wants to know what are the best tips to handle difficult conversations with subordinates or a team as a whole. Great question. And then, so just kind of getting into it from a coaching perspective, no conversation should really be difficult per se. It's really important to understand like a proper coaching session will be mostly a one-sided conversation, right? With the team coming up with a solution on their own, right? So a coaching session should not be a finger pointing, you did this and so did that, difficult situation, but more of a hands-off Q&A session with that leader asking questions to help the team to better understand their situation to come up with a solution on their own. All right. Next question here is from Jesse. Jesse, do you have suggestions for people who are leading but do not yet hold the title of manager? That is a great question, Jesse. And so just because, of course, you do not yet hold the title of manager does not mean you won't lead team members, right? So sometimes coaching our peers or even our family is just as important as coaching someone who directly reports to us. So being a leader is about so much more than just a simple title. And the tactics we discussed today will apply to any form of leadership. Next question here is from Janine. And Janine wants to know, what does coaching weekly one-on-ones look like? Like what questions can you ask, usually for a reoccurring meeting? That's a good question, Janine. But the beauty of coaching sessions is that there really is no preset structure, right? So sessions will be fluid, right? And based on your ability to simply listen and ask the right questions based on where that coachee is with their current goal and their current obstacles, right? So remember, you aren't trying to steer a conversation as much as you're trying to get that person to understand that they have all they need to determine what they will do next. All right, so next question here is from Jose. Jose wants to know, are there any resources for practicing these coaching conversations that you recommended? That's a good question, Jose. And so, like, if you like to practice coaching, start with team members, family members, whoever you want. These actually are the best people to coach with. And if you're doing it right, when you start working with your team members or family members, it actually allows you to, number one, hone those skills so that when you actually start working with your team members, you start to get it right. But you can always solicit feedback as well from those people you've practiced, those closest to you that will be able to provide you with that positive or negative feedback about how that ad hoc coaching session just went. All right, so next question here is from Eduardo. Eduardo wants to know, what if the mentee is not willing to learn how to succeed because they focus on something else? In other words, they just want to collect a paycheck. Hey, Eduardo. So first things first, and I'm sorry you saw that when I did this, your question is centered more around a mentorship versus a coaching session, right? So you said mentee. At least that's what your question was. And if you look at that manager's continuum, it's a different thing. So you as the leader will play a different role in each your mentorship sessions as well as your coaching sessions. And so that's a really important thing to say. So with that said, it's important to understand you cannot force someone to want to succeed at their job. If all they want is a paycheck, and that's what they want to do, is just go in, get their paycheck, and go out. There's really nothing you can do to really help that. So there are some things that leaders could do in the sense of providing incentives that actually lend towards that personal motivation. Like a bonus structure that some companies have. And that's just one thing. It's not the only thing, but just really understanding what really motivates your particular group, and then trying to find individual solutions to really help them move along the way. Next question here is from Leslie. Leslie wants to know, any tips on upward coaching? If you are a junior member of a team and you think that management isn't doing a great job of coaching the team to help everyone move forward. And so we've seen this question. There's actually quite a few people that ask this question in one shape or another. Essentially, how can I coach leadership, right? And so when it comes to that, you can coach. If you're coaching properly, the other person doesn't actually realize that they're being coached, right? But if you think management wouldn't be receptive to you coaching them, it's really just simple as, like I said, asking questions and helping them to really dig deeper and uncover things that they may not have noticed or may not have thought of noticing. The key, though, is that you are not trying to steer them towards seeing what you see, more so really steering them towards seeing what they don't already recognize, right? So, and if you want to, you can even just kind of schedule some time, like a one-on-one time where you can ask those specific questions, maybe like about their vision for the team and how they believe the team is being coached, right? So this may help them to see what is working, what's not working, especially if you incorporate some of that SBI format, right? Remember that SBI is a really powerful tool. Next question here is from Shania. And so they want to know, how can you help an employee from being discouraged when they're doing a great job, but aren't seeing a promotion as quickly as they would like? That's a good question, right? And this actually comes up quite a bit. So positive feedback, of course, is the first step, right? If positive feedback doesn't prove to be enough, you may need to sit down with this employee and discuss their desires around the promotion, right? So what is it about this promotion that they're looking for? Even if you can't offer a formal promotion right now, there may be other elements to that promotion that you can help with to help them step into that right now. Like, for example, maybe they want more independence to do projects on their own, right? So like the autonomy wouldn't require a promotion, but just instead a different type of communication between you and that employee. All right, so next question here is from Clark. Clark wants to know, what if the person I'm coaching isn't very talkative? That's a great question. And the answer is, don't be afraid to sit in the silence. So like typically, if as a listener, we aren't trying to, remember, we're not trying to fill that silence. The other person will eventually speak up, right? And if you know your coachee is less receptive to, your coaching sessions, and may just take some time to open up, you can also just try smaller, like 10 to 15 minute coaching sessions until they become more comfortable with that format and begin to open up. Next question here is from Greg. Greg wants to know, do you have tips on coaching small groups, 3 to 4 versus one-on-one manager to employee, right? How can you set up the wider team for success? And that's a good question, Greg. And so small group coaching can be helpful for the entire team if we're talking around like building morale or really solving an individual problem as a group. It does require a lot of care and attention when it comes to coaching, though, because you have a larger group and some people may speak up while others just kind of sit in the shadows. So you have to be good about keeping the conversation open to everyone and making sure no one takes over the conversation. Also, just like I said, just make sure everyone has a chance to be heard and also refrain from finger pointing or even calling people out. I know it's probably tempting to someone's not speaking up to try to draw them into the conversation by just calling out a name. But that usually just causes them to kind of, I don't have any questions. I have nothing to say, right? So, there's different techniques around that. But really also try not to dive into anything personal. So once again, something that really is a better format from a one-on-one perspective can be really tricky because a lot of times the conversation will gravitate towards one individual and starts to become more personal on that part. And then you've lost focus on the small group as a whole. So small group is helpful, but you really want to try to keep that conversation open, which is very difficult to do. And your job in that scenario really would be driving conversation amongst the group while you're sitting on the outskirts and then just trying to rein them back in when they get off task. Okay. Last question here is from Ethan. Ethan wants to know, do I have to know a lot about the person I'm coaching? What if they are new? So absolutely not, Ethan. Since the idea is to ask as many questions as possible to help them dig deeper into their own thoughts and processes, you really don't need to know about them personally. One thing I would like to add is that you do want to understand whether or not this person is ready to be coached, right? Remember, we have that manager's continuum where you start from training and you work your way all the way up to coaching. So you really want to make sure that they have all the tools in place first before you even start diving into a coaching session. But if you've watched this person kind of move up and you know they have the tools, then you can totally hop right into it. But it's kind of up to you. But really just understand, don't just jump into it if you're not sure if that person is even ready to be coached. Okay. All right. So this wraps up our Q&A for today. Thank you all for joining us for Coach Your Team to Success. Hopefully everyone learned something new. You can find all of our follow-up resources on the same page you're watching in the resources tab below the video player. You can also access a recording of today's session by clicking on demand at g.co/growonair. We'll also be sending a follow-up email with a survey for you to fill out regarding your experience in the virtual workshop today. It's really important to get that feedback so we can quickly improve these sessions and offer content that is most helpful to you and our other learners. Thank you again for joining Grow with Google today, and we will see you next time.